Welcome back. All right, so I recently did a video talking about what I've been watching on TV lately. I want to dedicate this video to one show that I've started watching. I'm only 3 episodes in, so I know that this is a band now that's out there, and we'll talk about the word band and how loosely it applies here and where this all started, which is in the 80s, really. But Popstar Academy Katseye is on Netflix. I watched the first episode of it based on the trailer. I saw the trailer and I was like, this looks bizarre. So Yvonne and I agreed that it looked bizarre and we would watch, first episode and just see how it went. And the whole time we thought it was just crazy. Such a bizarre show. The idea that record companies go, all right, we're going to create this music. We're going to basically have this vision for how we think everything should look. And then we're going to bring in these girls. And they are girls. They range in age between 15 and 19, apparently. That was the casting call. On the show, they're between 16 and 20, so it does take a while. And this is like a year. It's like a year out of their lives. And in the third episode last night, they even admit they don't tell these girls while they're going through this process how long this process is going to last. Which isn't exactly lying, but it's definitely a lie by omission, right? And again, some of these girls are in school, so they do their best to, make sure they're all caught up with their schooling and whatnot. But it is a messed up situation. And looking at, and I did see while I was putting this board together, I did see who makes it, and I looked at that list and I was like, and then I saw one review that was like, well, it should be on merit and it's not on merit. That's what was sticking with me. I think what sticks with me in this is there were certain girls on this that I thought really good performer, really good singer, not necessarily great dancer, but dancing's the most important part, which right there to me, personally as a music fan, breaks it. Um, I understand that like this is this is about K-pop. This is trying to turn a global band. Basically, you've got young ladies from all around the world, and you're going to create this new K-pop band with them. But if it's music where the dancing's more important than the vocals, I'm usually out. I do have like Britney Spears CDs, and I do like kind of jokingly listen to it. I would never go to a Britney Spears concert. I have no interest in ever seeing her live because she lip syncs 99% of the time. If you haven't heard her actual singing voice when they accidentally left her microphone on a couple of times or during like rehearsals, it's not great. And so I can't. I can't go to a concert where I know somebody's going to lip sync. I can't go to a concert where I know it's going to be performative, but not in the way that I want when I go to a concert. Like next month, I'm going to a concert. 3 bands are going to be at it. The Warning, Hailstorm, and Evanescence. I have no doubt there will be no lip syncing. Everything's going to be real. Everything's going to be awesome. So, the 20 girls, and the other thing that got me with this too was that they have 13 to start with. I believe it's 13 to start with. And then they bring others in. And the other ones they bring in, I think, are a little bit further along, a little bit better known, have a bigger following on Instagram. Like, just picture, like, you're starting a band. So you're going to start a band and you're like, we really want a drummer. Guy comes in, he's absolutely fantastic on the drums. You're like, wow, this guy's like the next John Bonham. And you go, all right, how many followers do you have on Instagram? And his answer is, I don't know, 65. And they're like, man, you're a fantastic drummer, but you got to go. Like, it's such a bizarre idea. Now, I understand that those are completely different types of music, right? And for some, I'm going to have to explain John Bonham was the drummer of Led Zeppelin, and I'll probably go have a cry about the fact that there are people watching this who wouldn't know who he is. But it's is it music? Yeah, I guess. Technically it's music. It's got a beat. Obviously you can dance to it because that's the criteria that decides whether or not these young girls make it. But when you're watching, and again, 3 episodes in, I'm watching this one poor girl basically destroy her foot, performing on it right after getting out of a cast and saying, it still hurts, but I'm gonna, I have to dance. I have to make it into this girl group. And all I could think was, she could be doing real damage to her foot. She could be doing real damage to her ankle, trying to overcome and overcompensate for a sore foot, right? she could be messing herself up physically, which I understand. I understand that this is the drive, this is the passion, but one question mark for me when I watch something like this is, okay, so you're going to create this new girl group. What kind of staying power will they have? Will they have one big album? Will they have a couple of big albums? Will they flame out? And the reports on this band were that the early on the sales were kind of not where they want it to be. They've picked up since the Netflix show debuted, and they seem to be selling pretty well in South Korea. But how long does that last? So maybe you go out there, you do all of this, and you join the band, but in the end, you're only in it for a couple of years, and now the band breaks up or whatever happens, it doesn't work out, and now you've still got that messed up foot, which may need surgery. It may never function properly again. And then as a dancer, what's your future in dance if you've got a leg that's not going to work right? So that was my first thought with that. Was, okay, as soon as she gets the cast off, she shouldn't be doing that kind of dance. They even talk about how ballet is not natural. Ballet is not natural movement, and that you have to train and basically break your body down for ballet movements. And I didn't think they spent enough time on this. One thing with having 20 different girls, there's not enough time on any one particular storyline. Just as you're kind of getting invested in something, thinking, I hope she's okay, they move on to somebody else. And so that's one issue. And the music already being written means that you're stepping in as a performer more than as an actual creator. And I think this is where people who work in the music industry and are, performing at seedy bars and trying to work their way up, this has got to be, I don't think offensive's the right word, but it's got to be tough to realize that in the same industry they're looking to break into, which I understand there are a lot of different facets and different ways that it can be done, but it has to be tough that, you're going to see this group get picked largely because of how they look and whether or not they're popular. It's a popularity contest in the end. I know the one that I'm rooting for. In fact, there's two that I'm rooting for, and now I know, because I accidentally spoiled it for myself, that the two I'm rooting for don't make it. And that kind of ticks me off, because I feel like one of them is supremely talented. And in the other girl's case, again, she's basically destroying her body to try to make it into the group. And then it just comes down to a popularity contest. I saw one, they said, oh, this one was too small. What? Like, I just, well, you don't, visually it doesn't look right. Why? I don't, and the funny thing is, I've seen some reviews where people say they don't think this has been beneficial to this process, where it doesn't make the people in charge of the process look good. There were times where I felt like the judges were really, really harsh, and I didn't really see why. So, and I understand, again, you're going to get negative feedback and all that fun stuff, but I couldn't figure out the why of it. Like, there's one part where a judge says to one of the girls, "You're not trying." And I thought, you can't say she's not trying. You can say she's not progressing as fast as the other girls. You can say she doesn't have the coordination or the rhythm of some of the other girls, but you can't say that somebody's not making the effort due to those things. They may not be suited. They may not have that gift as much as somebody else. So judging them against somebody else who maybe the other person's double jointed, maybe the other person's just got better rhythm, whatever it is, they have an easier time with the movement than the one that you're talking to and telling her she's not trying. And so for the young ladies in this competition, it has to be difficult, because there have to be times where, and there's one incident too, where they tell this one girl that, oh, you did this, and she answers with, no, I didn't. And they get like really like, how dare you? How dare you talk back when we're talking to you? And I'm thinking, but if she's telling you the truth, wouldn't you rather she tells you the truth and she stands up for herself than she just stands there and goes, no ma'am, sorry ma'am, won't happen again? If what she's telling you is true, and again, she even says at one point, look, I can show you. And the judge who's admonishing her says, no, I've already looked at the data. You're wrong. You're lying to me. And I'm thinking, this is not the normal way to go about that. As soon as she says, I can show you screenshots, say, all right, let's talk. Let's do that. and go through every single, and I don't want to give away too much information in case you haven't watched it and you're like, yeah, I'll watch that. But at some point there should have been a conversation of, okay, you say this didn't happen, I say it did. Let's look at it. Let's look at it. And so then they can go through and they can decide whether this girl's lying or not. You could even say, look, if I prove that you're lying right now, you're going home, and see if that changes anything. But didn't happen. So the look and the presence seem to be given top priority. The dancing as well. The vocals are not given a lot of attention. There are some young ladies that were trying out for this that just their singing is flat. There was one that I heard and I thought she sounds tone deaf. Like she's close on every note, but she's not quite right. One of the reasons that I would never sing publicly, I can't. Every note is flat. Like I'm kind of in the region of what it should sound like, but it's flat and it's not a pleasant experience. So I would spare the internet. I would spare the world my singing voice, because it just doesn't work. The sad part is, in my head it sounds good, but then when I hear a recording I go, oh, that's not what I heard. Oh, that's bad. So I don't do that anymore. But in this group, they kind of cover it up a little bit in a couple of cases, and they're like, well, if we can get this out of them, then when they're performing live, we can just pump in vocals. And I'm thinking, so why does it matter if they can sing? Like it's the question I've been asking myself since the early 90s. I remember a friend of mine, he went to a recording studio and he told me, he said, look, you can basically make whatever noise into a microphone you want and they can make it sound good. They can edit it, they can change it, they can do whatever they do with the sound and they can make it sound good. So if when these young ladies perform live, they're going to be lip syncing most of the time, does their singing voice in the studio matter that much? And the answer is not really. So I've said it before, Milli Vanilli, it feels like we're kind of a they went too far because they were just lip syncing and they didn't sing the studio version. But what if they'd sang the studio version badly, so they still can't sing, and then they just lip sync on their tour? I don't see a huge difference. I personally don't see a huge difference. I don't see the reason to take one band and go, oh, they're an embarrassment. That was so stupid. What an embarrassment they were. I don't get it. I personally just don't get it. You guys can let me know your thoughts, but I personally find the way that they put these girls through, essentially to put them through hell for a year on the show, like a year, and then you're left with half a dozen girls that are going to be Katseye going forward. They don't even get to choose the name of the band. The band's name picked. Done. This is just, we need members for this music we've got written. So none of them write songs. None of them play an instrument. It's just, we need dancers for this image we've created. And I just find the whole process weird. I find the whole process weird. And I understand that, like, I grew up with, or at the very least when I was in high school, the boy band started to become a thing. There were more of the all-girl groups that weren't necessarily musical, like they weren't necessarily ones that played instruments. And so this is something that's been out there for decades now, but seeing this process, just, it makes it different. I felt so bad for some of these girls. There was one they even eliminated where they're like, well, we don't think you're going to be ready in time. And I'm thinking, but you don't necessarily 100% know, and you're keeping some of these other ones around that aren't very good either from what you've shown. So it's kind of a mess. I'm going to finish the series though, because A, it's only 8 episodes. So that definitely helps. And B, from what I read online, once you get to the elimination part of the show, it completely changes. And people said it doesn't change for the better. So I want to see how train wrecky the show really gets. Yeah, I turned train wreck into an adjective. We'll see how train wrecky it gets. But that's why I've got the anxiety on the board, the I'm fine, because it feels like a lot of the girls on this show, this is them the whole time. And I don't know how healthy that is either. And it's this whole industry. You could see that a lot of these young ladies are, when they're eliminated from the group, they're not done dancing, obviously, but I worry, because some of them physically are breaking down already, and they're teenagers, and going through this process for that long and then not getting it has to be hard. Has to be really, really difficult. It will help that they're on Netflix and people see them, so it may very well help, but it could hurt too. So, say for instance, you go in, you do a little tryout, and the judges look and they go, actually, I remember her from that Pop Star Academy. She was really low on dancing. And I remember when they were talking about like her star power, she didn't really seem to have that. And then her popularity when they did the voting was really low. So maybe we won't hire her. Maybe we'll hire somebody else. But anyway, I always worry about stuff that probably won't happen. It's kind of what happens. I think it's just an aging process thing, really. But I'd be interested to know your thoughts. If you've watched it, let me know what you guys think about the show and the presentation. Again, I feel like some of the judges come across kind of badly. There's some really critical, like, there's moments where a judge is like, yeah, no, that was terrible, that was awful, I don't know what you were thinking with that, and they just keep going, and I'm like, oh, I think they've got it. I think they understand you didn't weren't happy with the performance, and again, while I could see some of these dancers were just absolutely on point and fantastic, I didn't think any of them were bad dancers because they were certainly doing crap I could never do. No matter what age, no matter how flexible I would try to be, these are things I could never have done. And those were the worst of the bunch. So, right? But let me know your thoughts if you've watched it. If you haven't, I'd recommend it. Even if you don't like the pop music, because the music itself has very little to do with it. Again, I'm just 3 episodes in. They really haven't talked about the music. They really haven't debuted the music. It's been more. The vocals really don't get focused on nearly as much as I thought they would. I thought there'd be way more look at the vocals, but again, dance is more important. Can you dance? Do you have star power? Which is tough to measure. I think star power is really tough to measure because what I think a star is, what you think a star is, could be completely different. And there were times where this judge would just start talking about this young lady and whether he felt she did or didn't have it, and I was vehemently disagreeing with the television. Like, I think she's fine, or I don't think that one's that great, but they think they're great. So it's one of those interesting things. Let me know your thoughts. How do you feel about this industry in general? And if you've watched it, do you think it makes the industry look, not necessarily great? There are times where the girls on this show they make a lapsed in judgment idea that they just do things that are lapses in judgment, but they're teenagers, and it feels like some of the just how heavy-handed the judges and the people in charge can be with these girls. I'm like, they're teenagers. They made a stupid mistake. Why are we making this whole dramatic episode about one mistake? And that was episode 3. And when I heard what the mistake was, I thought, I mean, is it a big mistake? Sure, but does it warrant a whole episode where we're focusing on this bad? No. They're teenagers. If the worst thing that my kids ever did was what these girls did in the 3rd episode of this series, I'd be so overjoyed and just over the moon happy. I just don't get it. And I'm not saying that to insult any children. I'm saying it because I don't think what these girls, like, was it careless? Sure. Sure, there was some carelessness to it, but was it dangerous or terrible or awful? Like, the way that they framed it at the start of the episode, I thought maybe they went out on a drinking binge. I thought maybe there was maybe they got involved in drugs somewhere. Maybe somebody did something terrible. Maybe they went out after curfew. Maybe there was some awful thing that they had done. And then when I heard what they did, I was like, okay, so that's against what they're supposed to do. It's against the rules. But it's not that big a deal. And they make it this big thing, like, oh, we're so disappointed. I've never been so angry. Man, I wish I had been, if that was the angriest that anything had ever made me. I wish. Anyways, let me know your thoughts. I know I'm not the target audience for this show. I get it, but I watch a lot of shows I'm not the target audience for. But I've been watching a lot of Alex Myers videos, and he's still reviewing all the Disney shows, and he's in his 30s. So sometimes on YouTube you talk about things that you're not the target audience for. So thank you guys so much for all your support as always. Hit like and subscribe if you haven't done so already. And again, let me know your thoughts if you watch this show. It's interesting. At the very least, it's very interesting. It's very different. And it is just odd to see how a group is put together by a recording company with music that's already created and a look they've already curated, and they're just trying to pigeonhole these young ladies into this image they have. And as soon as I saw the image of the group together, I went, oh, okay, so they had a look they were looking for too. This was more than just talent. This was that all of them, you could tell this was a group. This wasn't just six young ladies together. Yeah, they look like they belong together. But is that what it was? Because if that's what it was about, why even bother going through the whole year? Just go, that one, that one, that one, that. All right, well, we'll take those six, and the rest of you, thanks for coming out. And we'll work with these six for a year on getting them ready for this. Because, yeah, the ones that they picked are not necessarily the most talented. And I say that having watched the 3 episodes where I'm like, huh, so they didn't make it. Why? I'll find out why, I guess. But thank you guys so much for all your support as always. And hey, I'll talk to you again soon.